Good day. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays as well. If you guys have not already, you guys can go to my Substack to get email notifications. Go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so that you guys are notified whenever I do go live or upload clips. So thank you so very much. Now, as per usual, whenever I actually do have a show and I talk to people in the chat, so good to see everybody in here. We got Sweary Fairy say, hey, bestie, love the denim. Thank you so very much. I'm liking it too. It looks pretty good on me. So thank you very much for that, Sweary Fairy. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? So there's a couple of things that I actually want to get into today. One of the biggest things I wanted to get into today will be my main story is about how elites actually want to harm you. And why did Tim Gurner say we need to see pain in the economy? So this has been a interesting story that has really gone viral because of his remarks. So we're going to be getting into that as our primary story. But the first story that I would like to cover today is a cop laughed at her death. So we're going to be talking about this cop and him laughing at her death. And really, this explains one of the reasons why we need to change our system of public safety in this nation, because this isn't just a one-off. This happens over and over and over again. So we're going to get into that now. Laughing at your pain. Police officers are supposed to be the protectors of citizens, but as we've seen throughout history, that hasn't been the case. So, because of that, I want to show you guys this. So, who is this? This is Janavi Kandula. Janavi Kandula was a 23-year-old from Andhra Pradesh in India. She was on her way to receiving her master's degree from Northeastern University in South Lake Union. She came to the United States from the city of Bengaluru on a student exchange program in 2021, and she was going to graduate this December. Her life was cut short by Officer Kevin Dave in Seattle in January of this year. So let me share with you guys Kevin Dave. So this is Officer Kevin Dave. He was driving at 74 miles per hour when he hit her. And he struck Janavi, and she was taken to Harborview Medical Center, where she died a short while from her injuries. Now, after hearing this horrible story, there was another officer that caught wind of what had happened. And this was Detective Daniel Arterer, who you see here. So this is Detective Daniel Arterer. And Detective Daniel Arterer has some things to say regarding the death of this young student that was murdered. So I'm going to be sharing what Officer Arterer said. This is going to be, it's going to make a lot of people angry, as it should, because remarks like this should not be said of someone who's supposed to be protecting and serving citizens. So he's going to be recounting the story, so we're going to get into that.
Initially, he said she was in a crosswalk. There's a witness that says no, she wasn't, but that witness could be different because I don't think she was thrown 40 feet either. She is dead. No, it's a regular person. Yeah.
First of all, the fact that he laughed at the fact that she's dead, right? That's already ridiculous for him to do. That's already disheartening, and it makes you question his frame of mind by laughing at her being killed. First of all, who laughs at that about somebody who they don't know, that to our knowledge has never harmed anyone? Who laughs at that? What kind of person is that? What kind of person is Officer Arterer? Is this the type of people that we have protecting us? Let's continue.
Yeah, just write a check. Just $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value.
Let's go back over that again.
Yeah, just write a check. Just $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value. Initially,
she was 26 anyway. She had limited value. What kind of mind does it take to devalue the life of someone? What type of mind does it take when you do not possess the empathy to feel for that person? Shouldn't the people who are tasked with our public safety, shouldn't they be empathetic individuals? Shouldn't they be people who hear stories like this, and shouldn't it really affect them in their heart? When we hear stories like this, if it doesn't anger you, then the system did its job. Because if you're apathetic when it comes to stories like this, I think you need to look inward and to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why isn't this something that doesn't bother me at all? He basically joked about her death. He demeaned and insulted her murder. Said she basically had little value. Is there any reason why people like us say ACAB, all cops are bad? The institution of policing does not care and has not ever cared about us. This institution encourages the idea that because, you know, you're someone who's poor or you're someone who is of a marginalized group, that you don't matter. That because you do not have private property or millions or billions of dollars, then you're just a casualty of the process. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? This was a life, man. A life. I would like to share just a little bit more about her. So, this is talking about her. A little bit more about Kandula. She was the daughter to a single mother who taught elementary school. Reportedly, her mother took on financial debt so that Kandula could travel to the United States to pursue her master's degree. Single mom. Put herself in debt. This is from her uncle. Says her priority was to help her family. And people are saying the officer was driving 50 miles an hour. No, it's 74 miles an hour. The officer was on the way to a report of an overdose when he hit Kandula at the intersection of Dexter Avenue North and Thomas Street. Her body was thrown more than 130 feet. This continues, says a massive outrage broke out after Seattle Police Department released footage from the accused officer Daniel Otterer's body camera on Monday, which he can be heard joking and laughing about the incident. In a video clip, Otterer, who serves as vice president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, was reportedly talking about the accident in a call with the Guild's president, Mike Sloan. He laughed several times after saying, "She is dead." Toward the end of the clip, the officer can be heard saying, "Yeah, just write a check. $11,000. She's 26 anyway. She had limited value." This wasn't just some low-ranking police officer. This was a detective. This is the system that they perpetuate, that they continuously guard over without having any regard to anybody's life. The fact remains that ACAB is a valid acronym. And the fact is that people like this man, this guy, is dangerous. So let me continue. So the government of India actually got word of this, and they demanded a probe. It says, meanwhile, India on Wednesday demanded a thorough investigation into the incident amid the uproar. Because you got to remember, this was an Indian citizen, not an American citizen, an Indian citizen, an immigrant that was getting her education so that she can help out her family. basically everything that they ask immigrants to do. Come here, get an education, get a good job, help out your family. The American dream, basically. Quote, recent reports, including the media of the handling of Ms. Janavi Kandula's death and road incident in Seattle in January, are deeply troubling. We have taken up the matter strongly with local authorities in Seattle and Washington State, as well as senior officials in Washington, D.C., for a thorough investigation and action against those involved in this case. The consul and embassy will continue to closely follow up on this matter with all concerned authorities. That's from the Consulate General of India in San Francisco. So the country of India is actually looking into it now, because the officers basically look at the life so poorly. This is a culture that cannot be redeemed. And this is a culture that has to be done away with. Because is it a culture of death? That's what it is. So there was a gentleman on TikTok that actually talked about this as well. And he shared basically the same thing that I did. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead a little bit. Let me see. 128. All right. And so my feelings reflect the same as his. And so he says it better than I could. So let's go.
The voice you heard in that clip was Detective Daniel Otterer of the Seattle Police Department. Auderer. I can't imagine being so void of compassion and empathy that just hours after a tragedy, you're cackling maniacally about what happened and laughing as you tell whoever's on the other end of that conversation to just cut a check for $11,000 because the life of that 26-year-old woman was less valuable. And from everything that I read, she came here in 2021 to pursue her version of the American dream and get that master's degree and further her education and put herself in a better position to be successful. And she was 3 fucking months away from graduating and doing that. As a father myself, all I will say is that if I was the father of Janavi Kandula and I ever came face to face with Detective Daniel Otterer, I would likely be spending my remaining years behind bars. It will always and forever be ACAB, and there are no exceptions.
Absolutely. So this is why we need to defund the police on the way to about abolition, because these psychopaths should not be in charge of our public safety. They're not safe to be around or to be carrying guns and a badge in public. Now, as many of you know, as an abolitionist, I want to share this with you guys as well. You guys know exactly where I'm going with this. Make sure to share far and wide. 10 demands for justice. The road to abolition. Says 10 demands for justice is a new envisions a new society which prisons and police are no longer necessary, and communities are equipped to provide for their own health and safety. 10 Demands for Justice offers a roadmap for the defunding and then full abolition of police and prisons, beginning with the immediate actions to end police violence as well as racism and classism in policing, prosecution, and sentencing. And so if you go over the demands, there's 10 of them that you can share with your neighbors, with your friends, co-workers, everyone, because this needs to end. These type of people who are constantly and consistently undermining and demeaning our lives should not be running our public safety apparatus in this nation. These are the same people that get trained by the IDF who do the exact same tactics in Israel against Palestinian people. And so when we talk about wanting true public safety, it means away from people like Daniel Arterer. When we talk about having true public safety, it's not just enforcing the law. It's also making sure that people have adequate health care, which means a nationalization of our healthcare system. It means having housing for everyone. It means everyone having the ability to have an education without a paywall. It means everyone having healthy food readily available, clean drinking water, and a healthy environment so that they can thrive rather than just merely survive. And so these are some of the things that are absolutely necessary for true public safety, to get away from the violence that this system perpetuates on a day-to-day basis. You're experiencing violence right now. Just being housing insecure, just being food insecure, you're experiencing violence right now. I don't see the police going to the homes of millionaires and billionaires that are pushing the system to be this way in order to lock them up for the violence that they perpetuate against you. I'd love to see police go into Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street offices, put the CEOs in handcuffs for the system that they perpetuate in order to make sure that you are suffering. But they won't do that. They'll never do that. Why? Because they're the goons. They're the muscle of these people who keep this system in place so that you and I continuously suffer. They keep our hands locked so that we have no recourse but to be slaves to the system that they benefit from. This is why it is important for people like you and me to change. Change this system at its fundamental level. This is why you are important to this process. This is why websites like 10 Demands for Justice is so important. This is just like when I had the people, the organizers for ending qualified immunity in Ohio. Go ahead, look at that stream that I posted last week. How ending qualified immunity can also be in a part of the process to this. To hold people like this, like Daniel Arterer, accountable. Because that's what's important. And no, he didn't actually do anything to the victim. But the fact is that we know his mindset. And if we know his mindset, then isn't that indicative of the mindset of many people within this institution of policing? Every single day, we continuously see in 4K how they don't care and have no regard for our lives. ACAB. So if you guys have not, please make sure to like the stream as well. All right. Please like and share for more Jaybefaunt deliciousness. And so I'm going to get into the chat right now. Sheila B, so good to see you. Thank you so much. It doesn't show up on StreamYard. I'm sorry. All right. Sorry Fairy says, I'm going to assume the pigs also laughed at Sandra Bland. Oh, they'll always laugh. Very rarely they'll ever actually show any emotion. And if they do, they get a vacation. They can come back and do it again. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Miguel. Oh, good to see you. All right. Whoever says yes, they should be, but they train them not to care because what they have been trained to do is to go to war with us, and only people who are happy to do so will be cops. Thank you very much for that, whoever. That's a really good point. Good to see you, Waddy. Nice to have you in. Dan Lowe says, hey, JB, you cut off in the premiere uploaded today. You were on a roll. Really? I have to take a look at that. But thank you so very much for letting me know. Sweary Fairy, yes, this is the human element. What her family must be going through. You sent your kid to another country to study, to get an education, and their goal was to actually help you out. And what happens? They get hit, not just by some random citizen, but by an agent of the state. And then what happens? Another partner of that agent of the state laughs at the death of your kid? What? Imagine her mother finding this out. Gosh, this is crazy, man. Whoever says, to be clear, I drove an ambulance, I'd never be a cop. Yeah, those are the only people who are in blue that I actually respect are people who are ambulance and EMTs and mail carriers. Whoever, well, I'm not against the idea. So send that cop to India to face charges. Have him extradited. But do you know the United States would never do that? Great Teen says the U.S. is a death cult. We need to change that. We can change that, and we will. Good to see you, Notori. Thank you so much for the love, Notori. Thank you. Jacqueline, good to see you. Says, I'd say as a human being, this woman, this student, this daughter had limitless value. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it very much. DC says, damn, why are you competing with CJ? No, there's no competition here. Just I wanted to do my channel today. But good to see you in here, DC. SG says, I'm in India and there's still always big illness outside the U.S. Embassy of kids standing to get student visa. Wow. Jacqueline says, I can't imagine the absolute agony the woman's mother must be going through right now, made 10 times worse by the cruel remarks of this cop. Exactly. That's my whole entire point. This is disheartening. And I saw this story initially. Wait, when did I see it? I saw it initially on TikTok. I was just scrolling through at dialysis and I saw this. So, yeah, this really hit me. And I'm just sick and tired of seeing people treat us like this, especially cops. Stop Cop City, by the way. This is just going to push them even further. It's going to embolden them, and that's not what we need. We need more empathy, and defunding the police pushes towards a more empathetic type of system. All right, so just to let you guys know, just wanted to thank everybody for coming in. So just also want to say, if you guys have not liked the stream, please make sure to. Also, thank you to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee, as well as anybody that sends me any type of mutual aid as well. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also go to my Patreon as well, because I do also have tiers in Patreon, just in case anyone is wondering, and I can share that with you right now. So if you guys subscribe to my Patreon, I have JB members, I have Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. These are the different tiers that I have in my Patreon. So thank you so very much if you would like to support the channel on Patreon as well. Thanks. All right. So the next story that we are going to cover is going to be our primary story for today. We need to see pain in the economy. That's from Tim Gurner, multi-millionaire. It's going to be a long one. So elites want to hurt you. We need to see pain in the economy. That's what Tim Gurner, a multi-millionaire, said recently at the Financial Review Property Summit. He has a net worth of $929 million. So he's almost a billionaire. He's facing backlash after the statement about workers. And so I'm going to share this statement with you. But let's be honest right now. This is a statement that a lot of us pretty much know that they really just, there's no secret regarding this. There's no secret that they actually feel this way. But I just want to play it, and then we're going to go over it line by line, because Timothy here, another psychopath. Psychopaths in police, psychopaths in corporate America, or the corporate world, really. So let's hear what Timmy has to say.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID.
First of all, you know what? I'll go over it in just a second. Oh, even the first 8 seconds, I want to respond. Let's just go through the whole thing, and then we'll break it down.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. they have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years. And we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
All right, let's get into it. So Timothy here is wrong on so many levels. And I want you guys to tell me in the chat why you think he's wrong, right? But I'm going to go line by line and go over why he's wrong, why he's incorrect, why just because you have $929 million does not make you smarter. Timothy, let's go over what Timothy says. So, first 8 seconds, he already messes up. Let's go.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID.
First of all, Timothy is conflating that I don't want to work anymore with not wanting to be exploited anymore, not wanting to get a crappy wage anymore, not wanting to be treated like dirt anymore. That's the problem. You corporate dictators all think that just because somebody doesn't want to be your slave, that somehow they don't want to work anymore. Can you imagine that the slave masters are going, they don't want to work anymore. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that? Did you know that they actually came up with a medical terminology for slaves that want to be freed? Let me share with you guys. It's called drapetomania. It says a runaway slave is mania, mad, or crazy. It is unknown to our medical authorities, although its diagnostic symptoms may be absconding from service, as well known to our planters and overseers. Basically, it's called drapetomania. I'll show you. No, I'll show you. Because people don't realize this is basically slave master type of language. It's called drapetomania. This is from Jim Crow Museum. It says drapetomania is from draptis. A runaway slave is mania, mad, or crazy. It is unknown to our medical authorities, although it is diagnostic symptoms to be absconding from service, as well known to our planters and overseers. It says, in noticing a disease that therefore is hitherto classed among the long list of maladies that man is subject to, it was necessary to have a new term express it. The cause in most cases induces the Negro to run away from service is as much a disease of the mind as any other species of mental alienation, and much more curable as a general rule. With the advantages of proper medical advice strictly followed, this troublesome practice that many Negroes have of running away can be almost entirely prevented. although the slaves are located on the borders of a free state within a stone's throw of abolitionists. So they said wanting to be free, not wanting to be exploited, is a medical condition. What is this dude saying? What is Timothy saying? Timothy's basically saying, well, no, they don't want to work anymore. We have to circumvent that. We have to cure that. He sounds like a slave master. And look, those slave masters never went away. They just turned the plantations into corporations. And then they not only had those corporations that were within our borders, they took those corporations or plantations outside of our borders and started to exploit the people outside of our borders. They started to put in chains the people in the global south. That's what they did. Slavery never ended. It just changed its name and expanded. Here you have a slave master right here, basically saying nobody wants to work anymore, when in reality, it's nobody wants to be exploited anymore. Shall we continue? All right.
And that has had a massive issue on productivity. You know, tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. You know, they have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need.
Wrong. He's wrong. According to the Economic Policy Institute, from 1979 to 2020, net productivity rose 61.8%, while the hourly pay of a typical worker grew far slower, increasing only 17.5% over 4 decades after adjusting for inflation. Meaning, workers aren't less productive, Timothy. Corporate dictators like you just got greedier. Now, let's go and take a look at it. Because Timothy is going through it. But it's okay, Timothy. We'll enlighten you. So this is the Economic Policy Institute. And it says, if the fruits of economic growth are not going to workers, where are they going? Let's take a read. It says the growing wedge between productivity and typical workers' pay is income is going everywhere but the paychecks of the bottom 80% of workers. If it didn't end up in paychecks of typical workers, where did all the income growth implied by the rising productivity go? 2 places, basically. It went into the salaries of highly paid corporate and professional employees, and it went into higher profits, i.e., toward returns to shareholders and other wealth owners. This concentration of wealth income at the top, growing wage inequality, and the shift of income from labor overall and toward capital owners, the loss in labor's share of income, are 2 of the key drivers of economic inequality overall since the late 1970s. And that's from the Economic Policy Institute. So Timothy is wrong. Some of these people may be educated, but they're fools, so they're educated fools. Let's continue.
See that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around.
Wrong again, Timothy. Wrong. Question. Who's being paid a lot to do not too much, Timothy? We're suffering and barely making it. And you're coming here all comfy on your high horse, wanting to make us suffer more? When unemployment rises, the pain affects us in such dire ways that it puts risk to our lives. People die, Timothy. Our health, housing, education, and safety are at risk. And if you want to make our lives worse because of productivity, somebody sharpen the guillotines, please.
I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So,
wrong again, Timothy. This guy he's like 0-3 right now. This is because employers are lucky to have employees, because without us, they wouldn't have the wealth that they accumulated, Timothy. What they stole from the exploited masses. In order for the corporate dictators to have that private property, they have to have the money or capital to buy it, which means many times they exploited others to get it. Once they have it, they exploit it, and they use it to exploit more workers, because they exploit the environment, they exploit the towns, cities, taxpayers, whoever, and then workers. And then as the workers create the wealth, the employers or corporate dictators keep the surplus for profit for themselves, instead of giving it back to the workers who actually created it. They created it through their labor. We as workers created the jobs and the need, not the corporate dictators. The corporate dictators can disappear forever and we'd still be good, not the other way around, Timothy.
So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue, because that will cascade across the cost balance.
It's not arrogance, Timothy. It's confidence. It's confidence that we are realizing the power that we have. Timothy is scared. Why is Timothy scared? Because he does not want to lose that control that he has over you and me. He has that death grip around us. And what is that corporate death grip? That corporate death grip is basically, if you don't slave for me, you're going to suffer from not having healthcare, not having a home, not having food, not having an education, not having safety. They use poverty as the driving tool to force you to work for starvation wages and to be exploited. That's what it is. They want you and I to be under duress. And I went over the definition of duress many times on this channel. Duress basically means being forced, exploited, coerced into a position that you do not want to be in. And that is how people like Timothy want the system to operate. Because they feel that you have too much power already. We don't even have that much power. And any little inkling of it that we get, it's like, wow, you guys are getting too powerful. When in reality, baby, we're just getting started. You think you're suffering now because you're not making as much profit? Even though productivity has went up over 60% over the last 40 years, since 1979. And you somehow think, oh, productivity's went down. Oh, we'll show you productivity. Some manufacture some guillotines up in this. He got a lot of nerve. But it doesn't help when Paul Krugman basically is saying something in along the lines that encourages these types of remarks from Timothy. So, who is Paul Krugman? Let's find out. Paul Krugman is an economist, a Nobel Prize-winning economist. And he's talking to CNN's Christian Amanpour. And he has a few things also to say. And for me, he really just doesn't get it. Which is the type of people that Timothy actually like. People like this. Let's go.
The striking thing, if you look at it, it's not just, the economic data have been surreally good. I mean, even optimists are just stunned by how quickly and how painlessly inflation has come down. We're, no hint of a recession, at least so far. Never know, but no, so far. Inflation, not too far from the target of 2% and under 3% by most measures, and all of that just achieved painlessly. So this is great. This is a Goldilocks economy.
For who? For who? A Goldilocks economy? Wait. Hold on. I gotta wet my whistle for this one because this man is really chapping my ass right now. Paul, for who? He says people are hurting. Who is he talking about? People aren't hurting? Remember my analogy about the mansion? Just because you and I are in a mansion doesn't mean that we actually have it good, because most of us, meaning people like you, me, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your neighbors, we're in this figurative mansion. Let's call it the United States of America, right? And in this mansion, most of us are in the basement. We're cooking, we're creating products, we're dealing with other people within the basement, and we're stuffed in. It's hot, it's stuffy, There's no air conditioning down there. We're really going through it in that basement. And we're working our butts off. But there's a small, tiny few that's living upstairs. Some are living on the first floor. There's a group that's living on the first floor. Smaller group living on the second floor. By the time you go to the third floor, to the tippy top, you maybe have one or two people for the entire floor. And then even further up, you only have one person on the primary floor. What Paul is looking at is the people on the first and second floor. They're doing a little bit better. They're cool. They're fine. But he has yet to look at or talk to anybody in the basement. So he's like, everything's going good here on the first floor. The living room, everybody's nice in the living room. Everybody's good in the dining room. Everybody's good in the kitchen. Got a few people partying up in the foyer. That's basically what Paul is saying. People aren't hurting. Have you looked downstairs in the basement, Paul? At the rest of us? At the majority of us? I don't think he has.
People say it's a terrible economy. But what's really odd is that people don't behave as if it's a terrible economy.
What? People say it's a terrible economy, but people don't behave like it's a terrible economy. That depends on who you talk to. Come to the hood and see how we behave in this economy. For us, it's terrible and always has been terrible, Paul. He said, here's the thing. Nobody is surveying people like me or many of us who have been suffering. If you can afford a landline, I'm going to hedge my bets and say you don't actually suffer. Most of the people who are being surveyed are boomers with landlines who are doing okay financially, but not us. So who are you talking to? Who got your ear, Paul? Because it sure as hell ain't me, and it sure as hell ain't the people that's watching this stream. If it were us, then you would realize, you would know that for us, it is horrible. It's been horrible. And the thing is that it's not horrible depending on who's present. It's been horrible for years. And it's been growing. You're like, oh, it's doing better. Stop talking to your country club folks. Nah, bruh.
We can talk about surveys, in which people seem to be relatively happy with their own financial situation, or we can just look at behavior. People are out there with a lot discretionary consumer spending, travel, hotels, restaurants, all of that is booming. So people are acting as if they're in good shape financially, and yet they say, wow, this is a disastrous economy. Somebody must be a disaster for somebody, but not for me. And, we don't really understand why this is happening. And I can come up with multiple stories, but it is, I think, important to point out that there's a really profound and peculiar disconnect going on.
I'm going to ask you what the impact of that might be. But first, I just want to, reiterate your point by using a graph that's just published in the Wall Street Journal, which is not necessarily a liberal progressive rag, is it? I mean, it's the, the Bible of the financial world, mostly slightly conservative tilting. And the Wall Street Journal's graph is very interesting, with a breakdown by party of how voters rate the strength of the U.S. economy. And you can see after a dip where there was that, 2020 hard time or whatever it was, there's a dip there between 2022 and 2023, but now it's going up amongst both Democrats and independents.
Christian, average working people do not read the Wall Street Journal. We're not reading the Wall Street Journal. We're not being polled by the Wall Street Journal. What the hell are you talking about? How is this poll relevant to the lives of people like me? This is why outlets like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all of them, they actually aren't there for people like us. They never have, and they never will be. Because they're saying, oh, well, look, the economy is actually doing well among people who think all liberals and conservatives and independents. Here's something that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And I don't think Christian Amanpour is thinking about. This graph is just a gauge of upper middle and affluent class people's feelings who are Republican, Democrat, and independents. This isn't based on class dynamics. This is based on partisanship. This is a partisan poll. Of course, it's going to look more favorable to them. They're not hurting. Golly. Jeez, these people.
Steadily up, but not. It's flatlined. Really, it's just been flatlined amongst the Republican and those leaning Republican. So do you think this is all about narrative and politics, or is it really that certain parts of the population feel, economically deprived rather than others?
Okay, I don't think that there are people. There are people who are hurting, but they tend not to be it's not what the polls are capturing. We've just seen a big.
The polls aren't capturing it. He said. He said the polls aren't capturing it. They're not polling us, Paul. This doesn't fit into your narrative. If you take what Paul Krugman is saying and what Timothy Gurner is saying, then you're more likely to not see it as bad of a statement because you're looking at it as lower on the pay scale economically. This makes what people look at Timothy as saying it's like getting a quick shot in the arm or a blood draw. Lower on the pain scale, but not enough to really hurt them. When in reality, this is like a car wreck with a trauma to your extremities, right? You have extreme pain and it's life-threatening. Paul and Timothy don't get it. This is why the most disenfranchised people need to lead the movements instead of out-of-touch people like Paul and Timothy. Gosh.
Jump in child poverty because some of the pandemic aid programs have been withdrawn. But that's not, that's real suffering, but that's not.
Wait. Yes. People are suffering, but it's not that much. But child poverty is actually double increased. What? If people aren't hurting, then why is child poverty increased? Paul, the math ain't math in here, bruh. Why are we saying that people aren't hurting, but then the child poverty has increased? If child poverty increased, that means we're massively hurting. It just shows that Paul and Timothy aren't listening to workers or the poor people out here in the real world. Anybody who's in this chat who's a parent, if you lack food in the house, who's the first person that you give food to? Do you eat it yourself or do you give it to your kid? Who gets priority in a parent's life? The kid gets priority. So if your kid is getting priority and they're experiencing poverty, then people are really hurting. It's not just adults, it's children. And yeah, it's a Paul. No, I'm reading the tea leaves here and I just don't see it. Look, stop looking at artificial leaves and look at the real ones, Paul. Good Lord, man. But you're not paid for that. You're not paid for that, Paul. You're not paid to actually look at the real world. You're paid to consult and look at the PMC world and how they're doing. You're looking at how the rich and affluent people are feeling. And this is just to stroke their conscience and say, oh, no, you guys are doing okay. You guys can continue to exploit the workers at the same pace. In fact, they can actually hurt a little bit more. You can do that. You can hurt them a little bit more. It's okay. They can take it. Let me finish this. This guy is really just doesn't get it.
Not what these numbers are capturing. A very large part of it is partisanship. And it's actually, from a modern perspective, it's astonishing to go back to economic surveys from the 1980s when we all seemed to be living in the same country, when Republicans and Democrats had basically similar assessments of the economy. These days, Republicans claim that the economy is, they're giving this economy a worse rating than the economy of 1980, when we had 7.5% unemployment and 14% inflation, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And it's clearly, there's a strong element of just tribalism, partisanship. This is what people think they should say about the economy rather than an actual perception. Now, you can make some, it's also the case. Republicans say that inflation is rising when in fact it's falling. And you say, well, but prices are up. Isn't that what matters? But back in the Reagan years, when prices continued to rise, there was never deflation then, people did recognize that inflation was falling. So something has changed. Now, exactly what it is it just partisanship? Is there just were people just so shocked by the disruptions during the pandemic and the reemergence of inflation after a couple of decades when we really didn't think about it at all? That's a harder question to answer.
Basically, here's what Paul is saying. You're not hurting, you're just tribalist. That's all. Don't believe your bank account on the phone app. The real number is just fictional. That red number, it's just your tribalism that's making you go under in your bank account. That's all it really is. Don't believe what your eyes are seeing. The reality is that PMCs like Paul surround himself with people in a similar class. So he's not going to hear what we feel on a regular basis. So to him, it's just hyper-partisanship instead of the rich getting richer. That's it. And I think he's aware. But the question is, does he care? He's supposed to be an economist, and watch, mark my words. A recession is going to hit. He's going to be like, well, I didn't see this coming. Watch. Technically, we're already in one. We're in one. But a lot of people like Paul, are like, I'm doing good. My friends around me are doing good. What's the problem? We're polling PMCs, we're polling professionals, when in reality, most of us aren't doing well at all. Interestingly, I want to share something. Because as far as this economy is concerned, I forgot to put this in my list, but I have it up here. This is out of Market Watch. It says the number of people with multiple jobs hits the highest level since the start of the pandemic. It says the number of people working more than one job is on the rise. Multiple job holders reached 8,137,000 in March, or 5.1% of the total employed population, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's up from close to 7.5 million people during the same period last year, or 4.7% of the total employed population. So this is updated. This is updated as of 4 days ago. It says, but the March level was still lower than the pre-pandemic level of 8.18 million on February 2020 at 5.2% of the total employed population. Among those holding multiple jobs, there are a number of people working their primary full-time while taking on a part-time job, reach its highest level since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020. More than 4.6 million people were juggling a full-time job and a part-time job in March of 2023. The second time the data surpassed the February 2020 number was 4.5 million. The high cost of living and workers' desires to protect themselves in the event of a layoff are the two main factors driving the rise in the share of employees with multiple jobs right now. That's from ZipRecruiter. It says employees are also looking for additional income sources to ensure that they have at least one source of income if they lose a job due to potential recession. Inflation has eased off a year of rapid growth, but prices are still high compared to a year ago. Prices for all goods and services were 6% higher in February than a year ago, and food prices were 9.5% higher compared to the previous year, according to most recent government data. Announcements of layoffs are occurring regularly. The tech sector alone has shed more than 168,000 jobs since the start of 2023. Buber said, with the cost of living remaining so high, it can be challenging for individuals to meet their expenses with just one job. While consumers have adjusted for inflationary pressures by budgeting and spending less, many have turned to a side job to supplement their income, especially as many pandemic-related government benefits have ended. It says nearly half of employed adults have supplemented their income in addition to their paychecks. This is from a recent survey by Lend Club Payments. 27% of high income and 26% of middle income consumers says they have side job. So if the high income and middle income consumers have side hustles, how in the hell do you think we're doing? How do you think we're doing? Paul, Timothy? Although the labor market is still strong, hiring is slowing. The economy added 236,000 jobs in March, and the unemployment rate edged down from 3.6% the previous month to 3.5%. The gains are lower than the revised 326,000 gain in January and 472,000 in February, but still higher than the Federal Reserve's hope for slowdown in hiring. by the way, when they gauge how many people are unemployed, here's what they do. They account for people that have been unemployed for 6 months, right? After that, they stop counting you. They don't count you anymore. So if they're no longer counting you and you've been unemployed for a long time, then really the real unemployment rate is typically higher. And then on top of that, just because you got a job doesn't mean that they're going to count your second job as the same person. They're counting the jobs, not the people. So thousands upon thousands of people got a second job. And they're saying, oh, those thousands of people, those are all brand new jobs for all brand new people. No, they're not. There are a lot of people that actually had to pick up another job or a gig, because we live in a gig economy, just so that they can survive. But apparently, we're doing okay. Now, Tim Gurner, allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly because I don't really believe him, but he actually apologized. But there's a point that I want to make here. Let's just share this article and then we'll talk about my thoughts regarding this. It says Tim Gurner apologized over a call for more unemployment to fix worker attitudes. Oh, that's small. That's tiny. It says one of Australia's richest men has apologized after he said that unemployment should jump to remind arrogant workers of their place. We need to see pain in the economy, Tim Gurner had said. But Mr. Gurner said later that he deeply regretted the comments, which sparked global backlash. No shit, Sherlock. Of course it sparked global backlash, because you basically told us what you really thought. He said he has previously made headlines by suggesting young people cannot afford homes because they spend too much on avocado toast. This is the avocado toast guy. Avocado toast guy. Let's continue. It says video of his comments have gone viral, attracting over 23 million views and strong criticism online. Speaking during the property summit this week, the 41-year-old said that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed employees' attitudes and work ethics for the course of singling out builders as an example. I'm going to make this abundantly clear. When people talk about, oh my God, these boomers, they're tearing things apart. This is not a boomer. This is a millennial. This dude is only 2 years older than me. That's it. He's a millennial. The oldest millennials are 43. He's 41. So when people talk about, oh, well, millennials, we are doing that well regardless of class, that is true on a macro level. But if you're a millennial and you're part of that 1% or that very small group of corporate dictators, you're going to look out for your class no matter what age they are. And so it's the same thing. And the worst part is, these millennial corporate dictators are actually going to be wealthier than their predecessors. While we millennials that are workers and the poor and the regular people, we're actually going to be worse off than our parents, because the gap is widening. That's the way it goes. Let's continue. Says the gym owner turned real estate mogul claimed that the shift is hitting productivity in the sector, which combined with tougher regulations is fueling Australia's housing shortage. No, it is not. There is not a housing shortage, at least here in the United States. There is a hoarding that's going on. A hoarding of property, of hoarding of housing that is making it so that we at all cannot afford housing, and you're putting a barrier between it. Remember what I talked about last week in New York? Landlords are just not renting, which is causing a housing crisis in New York because they do not want to have any type of housing regulation. They don't want to have any rent stabilization in their city. So instead of actually going by the law, they decide, I'm just not going to rent to anybody. And this causes a shortage in affordable housing units. And so a lot of people get priced out, so they wind up homeless. It is an artificial scarcity. You don't think this isn't happening in Western nations like Australia? Oh, yeah, it's happening. And he's saying, oh, it's just productivity. No. In the Western world, we're way more productive than we have been. That's not the issue. Is that they want to crack the whip more. They want us to now make bricks without straw. Get the reference there? That's what's happening. Said he proposed the country's current job unemployment rate of 3.7% should rise by 40 to 50% to reduce arrogance in the employment market that would see more than 200,000 people lose their jobs. Quote, there has been a systemic change where employees feel that the employer is extremely lucky to have them. We already went through that. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. He said, but later, Mr. Gurner said in a post on LinkedIn, like everybody's on fucking LinkedIn. We're not all on LinkedIn, Mr. Gurner. You need to make that stuff public. He said that he had made some remarks about unemployment and productivity in Australia, and I deeply regret that we're wrong. Of course, he's trying to walk it back. He said there were important conversations to have in this environment of high inflation, pricing pressures on housing and rentals due to lack of supply and other cost of living issues. Here's the thing. You can talk about the high inflation, but who's causing the inflation and who's also posting record profits? Timothy. If high inflation was such a bad thing, you guys would not be posting record profits, but you are. So it's actually not affecting you guys negatively. You just want more. See, here's how corporations work. And I'll get to what I want to say to Timothy in a second. Here's how corporations work. So CEOs and the corporate board have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. And what every single corporation has to do, especially a publicly traded corporation, is they actually have to raise their profits year over year, even if it's by a percentage point, 0.5%, 1%, whatever. But this has to be perpetual growth, unlimited growth, constantly, over and over and over again. So let's say I have a store and it's a publicly traded company. So now I'm a CEO and I have a fiduciary responsibility to grow the profits. Meaning if I grow these profits, it has to be at least 1%, 0.5%, 2%, 3%, as high as I can make it year over year, so that the dividends of the profits, the dividends can go to the shareholders so they can make more money off of their investment. The problem is that when you get to a point, you get to a wall in a corporation. And that wall means that you cannot make more year over year, which means you basically made the same profit you did last year as you did this year. Now, what's the problem with that? Because you made that same profit, that means the dividends don't increase for the shareholders, which makes shareholders very angry because they want more, more, more. So because they don't increase, what do you have to do in order to increase those dividends? There's a few things. One is you raise your prices for your services, goods and services, which they do, which can also cause a squeeze on consumers. Another thing that they do is that they will make cuts. They'll make cuts to benefits. They'll make cuts to safety and regulation. Or if they really want those cuts to safety and regulation, they'll lobby Congress and they'll lobby the governments to cut safety and regulation for them. And they'll pay into the coffers of politicians in order to make those safety cuts to regulations so that they won't have to spend as much, so that they also can't get in trouble. They'll make cuts to employees. They'll cut their jobs. They'll produce layoffs, close down locations. So they do that there as well. They'll also use some of their money to buy up other companies that are also within the same industry. So take, for instance, Disney buying Fox, because they reached that wall. They were like, okay, because we already raised our prices, we already cut workers. All right, so now to increase it further, we need to buy up a company that's within the same industry as us so that we can absorb some of those customers too. So that's what they also do. This is why I talked about a couple of weeks back where Spirit Airlines is being bought up by JetBlue. Same thing. So they'll do these things in order to raise up the dividend price or the stock for the shareholders. So who gets screwed? It's you and me as a consumer, you and me as the worker, and then as taxpayers, as citizens, we also get screwed over, because now you have these companies that become so big that they're too big to fail. And so this is how it works. Because it's a perpetual motion of infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. We also are a finite resource. We can only work so much. We only have so much energy. And so that's how people like Timothy see us. In order for us to make more, we have to be more productive. But that productivity means that we have to work longer hours. We have to do more in a shorter period of time. That means we get less time to have a proper work-life balance. That means the means of exploitation increases with us, right? So then who gets exhausted more? Who gets exploited more? It's us. And that means of exploitation is to increase their profits so that they can actually have more time on their yachts, more time polishing their Maseratis, and more time living it up in their mansions. That's how it works. And so when somebody like Timothy is saying, well, we just need to increase productivity, in reality, what he's saying is that they just want more, and you need to have less. But this is what drives the inflation, or as I like to call, global price gouging. Because that inflation isn't because there's a need to increase prices, a need to cut workers, or a need to cut expenses like workers, or to cut expenses that are operations wise. It's because the shareholders are greedy, rich people, That's what it is. That's what's driving the inflation. This is why you can't afford to even make an omelet anymore. This is why, hell, the price of ramen noodles done went up. This is why you can't eat, it's becoming more expensive to be poor. This is why your rent went up. This is why it takes more money for you to get childcare. Because the rich are greedy. And we live in a system that facilitates, that encourages this greed. And it puts a squeeze on us. And it's tightening ever more around our necks. Let me ask you something. If somebody's choking you, do you just plead with them, please stop choking me? Or do you grab a brick and do what you need to do to get their hand from off your neck? Grab the brick, folks. It's time to grab that brick. You see, what Timothy said, when they say things like this is actually how the initial remarks is how he actually felt. There's no use in walking this back, Timothy. How they conduct business and push the government is indicative of how they really feel. It's in their actions. He was just being honest with his initial feelings. This is why corporate dictators are so dangerous and they need to be stripped of their power because they want to destroy us for their benefit. Y'all know how I feel about corporate dictators on this channel. All y'all know. Let me share something with you guys really quick. Because people like Timothy don't really regard this. To them, we're doing too good. But in reality, this is from News 13. This is locally. And I want to show you guys this because this really shows the reality of what we all are going through. It says homeless population increases in downtown Orlando, my city. This was back in May. It says experts say that there is a reason you might notice more homeless people on and around streets downtown. It says according to the Homeless Service Network, the homeless population increased 5% from last year across Central Florida. Marth Are, CEO of Orlando's Homeless Service Network, says unsheltered homelessness is up 38% from last year. Quote, those people did not change. The housing market changed. That's what went up. It's not us. We aren't the problem, Timothy. We aren't the problem, Paul. It's the housing market. And the housing market went up because you and your greedy asses have decided that we want more dividends. We want higher dividends. And so you guys raise the prices of everything. And when you raise the prices of everything, then what goes up? Food, water, housing, utilities, education, it all goes up. But you guys did not bother to increase the pay, the wages for our labor. So while we stayed down here, you guys decided to raise everything up on your end. And now the housing disparity, tick, 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 tick. That's how it went. So now we're way down here and you're way up there and you're still demanding more. People don't just turn to socialism and communism because, oh, they just want to be contrarian. It's just something to do. They turn to it because they realize the system that you benefit from, that you're perpetuating, it makes our lives more horrible. Housing is something I'm very passionate about because I know what it's like. It says many are living on the streets for the very first time. For 75% of the people that are experiencing homelessness, it was their first time. They have never been homeless before. Most people who are homeless have never been homeless before. You can't sit here and tell me, well, they just chose that lifestyle. No, they didn't, goddammit. Stop thinking that class is BS. Nobody sits there and they go, well, it's just the choices that you made. The choices were out of their control. You're literally living in duress. What do you expect them to do? Now some of them are living in their car, if they're lucky to have a car. Nah, bruh. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's why nobody wants to work anymore. No, we don't want to be exploited anymore, Timothy. She says the number one reason for increase in homelessness is due to rapidly increasing rents. The rent's too damn high. She continues, she says that's why they're outside, sleeping in places not meant for human habitation. In Orlando, it says the median price for a rental in Central Florida is over $1,700 a month. Any wonder reason why I got a GoFundMe on my Twitter page just so I can afford rent? I got a 71-year-old mother that's trying to go back to work because we're suffering, we're struggling. Why do you think? That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to grow this channel as well. So that my mother won't have to be an elderly person having to try to go back to work. Because I don't want to see her have to do that. She's a great-grandmother now. I want her to spend time with her great-grandson and her grandkids and enjoy the rest of her life. But she can't because we're struggling. Yes, me, on this channel, in front of your screen, I'm struggling too. I don't have it good like Crystal and Kyle. I don't have it good like Sam and Emma. I don't have it good like them. I'm not rich like they are. You guys can go on my Patreon and see how much I get per month. I ain't hiding nothing. The problem is that you got people who think, oh, well, we just need to, go by the margins and tweak things here and there. Biden is doing great. This economy is good. No, it's not, bruh. People need to wake the hell up. Who cares? Who cares what the GDP is? I'm concerned about what's inside my wallet. On top of it all, people like myself who get disability benefits don't get enough to live on. How many people who are disabled that you know that are actually living good? We're living in poverty. Check on your disabled friends. We're not okay. We haven't been okay for a long time. Check on some of your elderly friends because they're not okay either. Continues. The homeless advocate adds that there are areas low-wage economy also contributes to the homeless problem across Central Florida. Says Tony Wardard was waiting for a meal at Orlando Christian Service Center Tuesday afternoon. The 56-year-old reported that he became homeless 3 weeks ago because he could no longer afford to live in Orlando. I don't have enough money to get in a place. He came to the Christian Center located downtown for help. Here's the point. Even though I get a check, I don't have some $1,700 for rent. People are being priced out of life. When you're priced out of life, what option do you have? They want you to die. Because if you're not being productive enough for them, then to them, you're not worth living. That's the system that's perpetuated, that's pushed onto us day in, day out. And when we talk about wanting to change it, that's when the elites, the corporate dictators get scared. They need to be scared because what's coming is inevitable. If you're having it good and you're trying to keep the system in place, you better watch out because we're coming. You're no longer going to have that exploited wealth that you stole from us. It's getting taken back. Your billionaire status will be dissolved because we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Let me continue. According to the Homeless Service Network, other people who were unsheltered, 56.4% were found in Orange County, 31% in Osceola County, and 12.6% in Seminole County. Across those counties, the Homeless Service Network, its partner agencies and volunteers counted 2,258 people as homeless during the year's 33-day census, a 5% overall increase in 2022. This includes those living in shelters and transitional housing, as well as the 587 people who were unsheltered. But it does not count people who doubled up with other families, sofa surfing at other people's homes, or staying long-term in rent-by-week motel rooms. It is estimated that hundreds or even thousands of families fit in that category, especially in Osceola County. And so this is something that a lot of people do not think about. If you are couch surfing or doubled up with families, or if you are living under duress, basically having to move in back home with your parents because you have no choice but to do so, you're homeless. You have to come to terms with that. You're homeless. If you're sleeping on somebody's couch, you're homeless. You are. You have to come to that conclusion. You have to accept it. If you are renting a room under duress, meaning it is by force, you are being coerced into that choice, you're homeless. You are. The definition of homelessness needs to expand because there's a lot of people who are homeless that don't want to acknowledge that they're homeless. And you are. If you're making somewhere under $70,000 a year, $75,000 a year, you're literally living in poverty, especially in the state of Florida. You're living in poverty. Why? Because you need to make above $35 an hour just to live and afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Florida. You're in poverty because if you can't afford to live in the average place, then what do? You're impoverished. And somehow Timothy is like, nobody wants to work anymore. God, I want to cuss him out so bad. Oh my God. So that's the reality that people like Timothy and Paul do not see, do not want to see, and are not trying to see. And so when he tries to walk it back, what's going on? He's basically trying to say, well, what I didn't mean it. I was drunk. A drunk person speaks a sober mind. He's drunk with power. He just told you exactly what he thought. What is the answer? What is the solution to help us get out of this? We say it before and we say it all the time. Helping each other out with mutual aid. Unionizing not just your workplace, but also the tenants and maybe your building. Pushing for ballot initiatives that can help out, that can ease the pain of those of us who are working and poor. Pushing for worker co-ops if you can within your workplace, or if you can come together with your workers. You can even do that through ballot initiatives to try to push for more worker co-ops. But that's the point, right? To build a dual power so that you don't have to suffer as much in this system, so that we can actually have something better. Now, that's some of the answers that we can do. Because ultimately, people like Timothy and Paul, they're in la la land. But they're going to be in for a rude awakening. Because once the people, the working people, are done, and we're just about there, it's over for them. Once the people in the basement, the proverbial basement, are sick and tired of being in that basement, we're coming up the stairs, we're knocking the door down, and we're going to share the mansion collectively. Nobody's going to have stock over one room or another. We're going to share. So, I did a poll, and we'll go over that in a second, of your opinion. Hang on. Make sure I pause that. Okay. So, let me enlarge this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen really quick, and we're going to go over this poll, because I took a poll for all of you to take. If you guys have not taken a poll, take it right now, because I'm about to share the results. But this is out of 55 votes. It says, according to Paul Krugman, people surveyed are, quote unquote, doing well economically. Is this true for you? You have yes, no, and neither. Yes is 0%. Neither is 5%, and no is 95%. So most of y'all are not doing well. And a small few are kind of in between. But nobody's doing well who's watching the stream. Nobody. And so for people to say, oh, well, everybody's just doing well, because that's not how they're behaving. No, it's not. Please make sure to give me a like. It pushes me out into the algorithm. Feel the rhythm, algorithm. And if you guys have not as well, then you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com as well. So let's go to the comments as well. All right. Whoever says rich people have this psychosis that they never have enough money, that fear of not getting more money, and more money is their weakness, though, which is why they try their hardest to hide it. Whoever says if someone chokes me, I kick their back where they came from. F around and find out. Where he says, I remember reading a book, The New Thing, where the co-founder of Netscape, who grew up poor, said he'd feel better once he became a billionaire. When he did, he said he was still feeling poor. It's a vicious cycle. Sakudo says, love you, JB. Good to still be sharing this life, all of us together. Good to see you too. Thank you so much, Sakudo. Kid Grigor says, homeless increase everywhere. Absolutely. Reality Revolution, thank you so very much for the super chat. Says they're killing us. Absolutely. That's exactly what's happening. We're dying daily. Cobra Commander says, whoever, I never use, oh, sorry, you're talking to somebody else. Adam comes in saying BlackRock is driving it up too. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they all are. They literally hold trillions and trillions of dollars in assets and are driving up the cost for everything. Colin coming in saying homelessness exploded around Albany, New York since the pandemic and crazy housing prices. I believe it. I believe it. I was thinking this too, Purple Philosophy. Paul Freddy Krugman. Oh my goodness. These people really are a nightmare. Not just on Elm Street, but everybody's street. Tomas says 2008 housing crisis, COVID, and now inflation. Yeah, a lot of people went homeless. Yeah. And yes, Purple Philosophy, I think this needs to be said. Homelessness is not a lifestyle. Absolutely. KD Lewis says, wait, JB, are you saying the NLRB actually doesn't do shit to help you and people in your position? Wow, I'm shocked. but the NLRB, JB, the NLRB, you down with NLRB? Yeah, you know me. Nah, boo, that ain't help me. Big Rich says people in this country have voted their own demise, voting to keep Black people oppressed. Now we're all suffering together. I said it before and I'll say it again. If they did it to us, they're going to do it to you. They wanted to keep us enslaved, and guess what? We got free, so now they keep us enslaved, and now they're trying to enslave all the poor white people too. It's just real. Now we all on the slave plantation together. Bryce, good to see you, Bryce. Thank you so very much. Big Rich says, when the media was publicizing how bad Detroit was, me and my wife bought a house for $5,000. Now, thank God, we only have to worry about $1,800 a year. Let me go and land taxes. Wow. FOP, Brian Shea. FOP. FOP. I'm sorry. FTP. Sorry. FTP. Exactly. That's what I said, Sakudo. Thank you for echoing what I just said. It says there's no housing crisis. We have a hoarding crisis. The number of vacant units, homes, and vacation rentals is double or triple the homeless count. Yes, there's over 16 million vacant homes in the country. And so don't let anybody say that we have a housing crisis. We have a hoarding crisis. Don't let anybody tell you that we need to build more affordable housing. No. We already have the housing. We just need to make it affordable. And by my metric, affordable is free. Because once you put a price barrier there, then you're making it so that some people can't afford it. And the problem is that people's like, well, landlords provide housing. No, they don't. Construction workers built the housing. They're the ones. Wadi, you have a way with words. Wadi says, nightmare on Wall Street. Yup. Look, Wall Street is definitely a nightmare. I'm telling you. Wow. Some brilliant people that be watching this channel. This is why I like y'all. All right, so I'm going to be heading out. Be sure to tune in to Sabby and JB on RBN this evening. We will be live and in your face at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, I will be doing the reading over the weekend for Asada Shakur's autobiography, so tune in for that. I'm sorry, I've been slipping up, guys, but yeah, I've been doing a little bit more, trying to increase the quality of the channel as well, because, well, I need to, and I want to make sure I do better for you guys. Also, Laziness Does Not Exist, the reading for that. Also, I'll be trying to get into that this weekend too, as well. And I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. And I want to play, to close out, a particular video that I found on TikTok, and I will be sharing that in a second. But yes, so of course I'll be doing that. News stories will be on the JB show on RBN this Sunday. So I'll be talking about that as well. And let me make sure. Where's my list? Oh, you know what? I think I went past it. I didn't go past it, did I? JB. Where is it? I know I have it. I got it. I got it. Ah, got it. All right. So I'll make sure I got that primed and ready. Okay. So also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also, if you guys would like to give any mutual aid, or if you guys would like to subscribe to my channel, you guys can also go to my Patreon as well. If you guys would like to get some merch, you guys can also go to my merch store as well. I'm on Bonfire. It's actually below the video if you guys would like to get some merch from me. I also give merch out through my Patreon for anybody who selects one of the tiers at $10 or above. So if you guys would like to, you guys can do that as well. Actually, no, it's $5 and above. So yeah. And yeah, so thank you so very much for tuning in. Thank you to everybody for showing up. If you guys have not already, just let you guys know, I will start promoting the action that we're going to be doing on the 23rd, which is not this Saturday, but it's going to be the following Saturday. We're going to be doing action out in Orlando from the Mutual Aid or Orlando Revolutionary Blackout Network chapter. So we're going to be doing that, but I'm just letting you guys know, so people won't be like, oh man, I didn't know and I didn't plan for it. So just letting you guys know, not this Saturday, but the Saturday afterwards, we're going to be doing that. So just wanted to keep you guys up to date on that. Now, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And, you know, smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you don't got them, then watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. And, you know, I feel, you know, that as far as Janabi, you know, may she rest in peace. And I hope that those cops get their comeuppance, especially the one that joked about her life, because I just hope that cop is humbled and fired, because he does not deserve, to be in public with power like that. It's too dangerous. And let's defund the police. And for people like Paul and Timothy, yeah, they really do not understand. And this is why it's up to us as workers to make that understanding happen on a global scale. We're already doing it in a macro way with countries that are overthrowing and kicking out France. And we're doing it in a micro way by quiet quitting, things like that. So let's make sure that we continuously take care of ourselves as workers, our fellow people, so that we do not, so we don't suffer any longer, because we're pretty much done with it. So thank you so very much. Oh, mwah, forehead kisses to every single one of you. And I'll catch you guys a little bit later. Bye.